look at over here where it says save and go to Nearpod. Now convert to draw it, what it does, it takes a picture of whatever that Google slide is, and then it makes another slide and makes that into a draw it where you could draw over that. But let's save and go to Nearpod. And as I do that, notice how it's saving my slides and it's moving them over to Nearpod. And now it's ready to use. But I want you to notice something. When I click on edit right here, and I want to edit the slideshow. If I click on edit, it's going to open it up back into the Google Slides, and that's where you do the editing. Now, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go ahead and let's go into Nearpod. Give me a moment. I know I'm not sharing that slide with you yet. So I am back here now, and I'm going to hit Save Changes, and it's going to bring in that Nearpod slide. Now, here's a cool thing about doing a Nearpod in Google Slides is what if Misha and we're working on a Google Slide Nearpod, and we're going to do this collaboratively. Well, now in Google Slides, she can go in, add Nearpods, add different slides. I go in, add Nearpods, different slides. And when I save it into my Nearpod, I grab that version and it becomes my Nearpod. And then Misha can go in, she goes into that Google Slides, and then when she downloads it to Google Slides, it grabs that version and brings it in. But we can both work on and collaborate on a Nearpod using Google Slides. And that's the power of using Google Slides to create the Nearpod. Now, I want you to experience some of these different types of slides before I show you how to use them. So we're going to do a live participation. And here's the code. But remember how we always, if you don't know how I do this, I share the code by link because we're in this Google Meet. And it's easy for me to drop that link into our chat, and then you just click it and it opens. But if you're doing this with your students and you want to share this, and it's a lesson that is a student guided lesson that they work on their own, Google Classroom is a great way to share it. But I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to close it. I'm going to go into the Google Meet and I'm going to paste it in the chat. It's coming. And there it is. So you have a hot link now that's in the chat. And when you click on it, it's going to open up a new tab and it's going to ask you for your name. It's going to ask you for your name. If you could, please put in your first and last name. And on the nickname, go ahead and leave that blank. You don't need to worry about that. One of the things that I like to do is have my students put in their student ID numbers in that spot. In the very near future, though, we're going to be using Clever to open up and use Nearpod. And when the students do that, their names will automatically be put into the system. All right, so I have 3. How many people do we have in this session, Misha?
I think we have about 5.
We have 5, so I have 3, and I'm waiting on 2 more. I'm waiting on you to come in. We're going to give them
maybe
a moment.
Maybe 4. Maybe I'm counting myself as well.
Oh, I gotcha. And then I'm presenting, so I count for 2.
Yeah.
And I got a question, Misha. Did you turn on the recording?
I did turn on the recording. It took a little while for it to get started.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yes, but it is recording. So wherever it was that we started, we'll just get it in there.
There you go. Now, a couple of things. I want you to go into the Meet side. I want you to see my screen, the teacher side for now. And I want to show you some of the changes that has happened very recently. 1, notice this open whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
What that does is, let's say I'm doing a Nearpod I'm in this classroom with my students. I might be doing a math lesson, and I might be on my board that's in front of my class. Just imagine it. And you know those interactive boards, a lot of us have them in our classrooms now. And so when I click this open, all of a sudden it opens up into a whiteboard app that you can see. Now, Misha, are you seeing it?
I can see it. Yes.
Very good. But if you go into the Nearpod side, you can see that is a presentation tool. Now, this is not something that you can do. This is a whiteboard that the teacher can do. So maybe it's math problems. All right. So maybe it's something that the teacher's going to draw on her whiteboard. Now, if you're back into the Meet side, when it's time for me to close this up, all I do is I click that close whiteboard and it goes back to that session. So if something is going on and on the fly, you want to open up the whiteboard, boom, there you go. And you can open it up and you're ready to go anytime within your lesson. And a lot of times when we're in the middle of a lesson with our students, all of a sudden we have this great idea of what we can do, and we need to shift gears in that lesson. Well, Nearpod will help you with that also. Notice the top where it says Add Activity. If I click on Add Activity, I can all of a sudden throw out a question, a true, false, an open-ended question. So if I click on it, I add the question, how can the instant whiteboard help you in your lesson? I put a question on it. I can add an image if I wanted to, or one of the images that I have on my system. And then when I hit share, give it a moment to add. And there, now all of a sudden, it puts in that slide where I can get you to answer something that just came out of the top of my head. And we always shift gears. So go ahead, and how could you use the instant whiteboard in your classroom? Go ahead and add that in.
Mm.
I'm going to go ahead and hide the student names. Absolutely. So that's what's called an instant activity that you can do on the fly as we're going. I'm going to go ahead and close this activity. And when I close it, do you want to end? I'm going to put yes. And it's going to take me back to where I was in the Nearpod lesson. Give it a minute to load. And I'm right back where I was. Let's say you're going to do synchronous and asynchronous with your Nearpod. So you're going to have some components where the students, we're going to do this together. And then all of a sudden, we're going to shift gears. And the second part of the Nearpod lesson can be a student paced. You see what I'm saying? So maybe you have a video, you have some questions going on. We all do this as whole group. And then when it comes to the quiz and some open-ended questions, you want them to have time for it. So then look at the bottom right corner. I want you to look at the Meet side. Do you see where it says student paced off? That means right now we're in a live session. If I would click on that, all of a sudden that you as students would be able to continue on your own. And I would not have to continue guiding the lesson. So you can do a teacher-led lesson and then shift into where the students are on their own with that capability. Notice on the Meet side, this is where I can draw and you will see it. So the whiteboard is just a whiteboard. But this, if I open this up it's going to give me my tools that I can annotate over this slide. So maybe I have an image of a water cycle, or I have whatever image I have on the Nearpod, and all of a sudden I want to draw on that. And we're going to go over the Nearpod 2.0 so I can draw it over, and I can bring in. Maybe it's a map that you brought in to talk about a battle, and then you want to draw on it on certain parts of that. Maybe it's an image of a passage, and then you want to annotate over that passage with your students. And so that's what you have, the draw tools. And if I close the annotate, it takes away all the annotations that you've done, and you're back to the beginning. All right, so let's go back into your Nearpod. There's a set what's called open and drop that I want you to do. So when I go into the next lesson, and I want you to notice this drag and drop, and it has 4 images. And what you want to do is find the living and non-living things and drag them into the correct column. All right, good job. Now go into the Nearpod side as a teacher. And let me not take off the student names. And notice what I see as a teacher. If I click on one, I can then share it with the class. And here we go. Here we have the living and non-living, and they were correctly put into the correct column. And we can talk about that. The kangaroo is a living thing. Why is it a living thing? And we can talk about it. We can talk about the little puppy, the rock, the pencil, and we can have those discussions. If you go back into the Nearpod side on the Meet side, as a teacher, I can change to the different point that everybody was working on. And it doesn't show the student's name. And so there's a little bit of a no fear kind of a thing. Now, and I can share any one of these with my class by clicking on that button, Share with Class. Now, the next drag and drop is really cool because it has where it will duplicate the images. So when we go into the next one, and it talks about money. Notice how you have the dollar bill, you have the coins, and look at the top. Now, the instructions at the top, you can zip that up so that way you can see what you need to do. And then what you do is you drag the coins or the dollar bills into the right column. So give that a try. Take a look at it. And as you're doing this, I want you to think, because we all teach in different things, how can you use this in your class? And don't worry, we're going to go over on how to make this happen. Hey, Misha, have you seen this one before?
This is new.
It is new.
Yeah. I thought I knew a lot about Nearpod.
Yeah, this one came out not
Yeah.
too long ago.
Yeah.
And what it is the drag and drop, and you can bring in
Yeah.
background images, and then you can make it where it duplicates the image.
Yeah.
And don't worry, we're going to show you how to make this happen. All right. And we as teachers, I know we're all like, we got to finish this, we got to, but I want you to get the feeling for it of what it's like. But I want you to keep thinking, how can you use this in your classroom?
We do have somebody who raised their hand.
Go ahead. What's the question?
Can you do this with a number line? Can you add and drop things with a number line?
Yes, you can. But you're going to have to find an image of the number line, or you draw the number line.
Yeah.
And then you put the numbers in for them to drop it in. I'll show you how that would work.
A great way to do that would be using Google Draw.
Yep. You can do the Google Draw.
Yeah.
And the tools within Nearpod will allow you to draw it also. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. But if you want a pretty line, you want it straight, you want all that, Google Draw would be the way to go.
Mhm.
And so I hope the excitement level is building. So let me go ahead and share one. And so now when you look at it, then we can all talk about it. Let me go ahead and unshare. Now let's go into a question. And on this one is a collaborate board. Now I'm asking you the question is, how can we use the drag and drop slide? We already had one person, number line. That would be a perfect way. And so go ahead and drop in some of your ideas how you can use the drag and drop. Ooh, timelines of history, vocabulary. Oh yeah, you're getting it. Identify parts of a formula. Perfect. Number line, rhymes, literacy, activities. Absolutely. Sorting. Yes. So thinking maps. Perfect. Now you got to realize you're giving them the image, the words, and then they're dragging and dropping into a set place. So awesome. Geometry and shapes. Oh, I could see that. Absolutely, like rectangles, and then you have different types of rectangles, and they put them in. You have Oh yeah, absolutely. Good job. So let's take a look at the next one. This is a draw it, and you're thinking, okay, I know how to draw it, but here we brought in an image that asks a question, and I went kind of high on this, and it's talking about what your goals are in the future as students. And so let me go into student view so I can go ahead and go over this with you. And I want you to take a look at my screen. Go ahead into Google Meet. And this is actually one of the lessons that Nearpod already had built. And so I'm going to zip up the instructions. So here it talks about my strengths. All right. And so let's go with one. So let's say I'm going to put an item on number one for one of my strengths. Look at the tools that you have at the bottom. So if I click on the text, I can make this fit within an area. I can change, I can put it in any of the boxes that I want. And I can put in enjoy working with kids. Now I know it's a lot, so I'm just going to bring it in. I'm going to move it up just a little bit so I can get it to fit a little bit. So you see how that works. And then here's the evidence that you would put in on the strength. Why do you believe that? And then you would put in possible careers that would utilize those strengths. And then you try to find ways of the strength benefiting me in other career. Now, when you open up the instructions and you wanted to help the students, here's a web page that goes over that content to help them. And so this would be the drawing capability of that. And we'll go over draw it in just a bit on how to bring in an image, taking a screenshot possibly, or bringing in just a photograph. So there's different ways and things that you can do bring in, but then they annotate draw over that image. And that's how that would work. And then it gives you a place that you can add content to support what you want the students to do, like this web page. So you can now, yes, draw it's easy to use, but you could take it to a whole new level. And that's why I call this part of the Nearpod 2.0 component. Now, let me go ahead and zip that up. Let's go into the next slide. And then here's another question on open-ended. Now that you saw a little bit about how you could draw it in a different way, I want you to tell me now, how can you use the draw it slide in your classroom? What are some of the ways that you can? But I want you to notice something, that you have the record capability at the bottom. So if you want to record your voice, go ahead and give that a try also. So how can you use the draw it slide in what you teach in the classroom? Let me go back to the teacher slide because I want to see your responses. Now, how can you use the draw it slide? And I don't want you to panic. We're going to go on the how-to part right after this. I just want you to see a couple of examples before we get this started. Math problems. Perfect. Yes, think, pair, share. I'd have them do some. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm thinking of labeling.
Labeling.
Just my first grade teacher inside me.
You never let that go.
I never let it go. No.
Nope. I was a sixth grade teacher, and I'm always seeing it within that lens too. Math problems, absolutely. Labeling maps,
Hmm.
drawing a picture on how you feel, maybe
Yeah.
like a smiley face, a sad
Yeah.
face. Algorithms, standard algorithms, absolutely. All right, so now let's take a look at the next one. Now, we did this PDF. For those of you that was here with me on the first Nearpod, the beginner's Nearpod, we did go over this and you saw this already, but I want to go deeper into how I did this. So when you open up the PDF viewer, I want you to go out and just take a quick look at it, a quick read. Just skim it. Don't worry. I'm not going to grade this anyway when we get to the Q&A part. Take a moment. And those of you that was in my Nearpod 101, you got a jump start on this one. But we're going to go deeper on how to make this happen and how to build it. All right, let's go into the quiz part now. A lot of us have PDFs that we work with. They might be PDFs that we created. They might be PDFs that were part of a textbook of the online that we want to use. It could be from many different locations. It could be from a web page that we just found that we can use the PDFs from. And so on the next side, what I've done was I took the questions that was from the PDF and then I put them into the quiz and I put it onto the next slide. So now I want you to go ahead and just very quickly, multiple choice, go ahead and answer the questions. But this could be a reading passage. And then the next slide or the next Nearpod could be an open-ended question talking about what was the main idea to that reading passage. Maybe it was a PDF on how to solve problems, and then they on the other side they do a draw it on another problem that you have them do. We're almost there. You have a few more working on it, so I just want to give you the chance. We're just going to take one more minute, and that way we can move on. I want to make sure that we take you through how to do this on your own Nearpod. All right, so let's go into the next one. The next one is kind of similar to the drag and drop, but it's a different. Oh, no, it's not yet. This is the VR that we brought in. And notice on the VR that you can take this image and you can drag and move it and look around. This is Kamehameha's statue in Hawaii. If you haven't had the opportunity to go to Hawaii, it's been many years I've gone, but you can take a look and get an idea of how beautiful it is. Maybe we're studying a little bit on the history of Hawaii and going in. So take a moment, drag that image. You can move around. You can do a 360 with it to look around. I know when I'm looking at this, it makes me want to go ahead and go back to Hawaii. And you can look down, you can look up. And then we could talk about Kamehameha and then go in and talk a little bit deeper about it, whatever that lesson is. And I'll show you how to bring the VR. They're pretty easy, but a lot of us haven't had that opportunity to actually use the VR. And I wanted you to have that opportunity to take a look at it. And how do you bring them into your lesson? Okay. Now, in the next one is the one I was talking about. This one is I brought in a sentence. I brought in a quote. And this is a fill in the blank. And I want you to take a moment. I want you to really try to get this right. See if you can. This is a quote from Steve Jobs. So let's take a moment to fill this in.
Making them work today, Larry.
I know I am, but I wanted them to get a feel for it. So that way they can get an idea of how this would work. Is how to do it, it's not that tough. But I think sometimes you got to practice it and see it as a student, and then you can go ahead and then when you build it, it makes sense. All right, we're going to give this 505. Let's go to 506, and then I'll show you the answer.
Do I click on done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the bottom right corner when you drag and drop the words. All right. Now, let's see the answers. And this is from Steve Jobs. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma. which is living with the results of other people's thinking. And you're going to say, Larry, what is this all about? And the dogma is a lot of times we get caught up in seeing a resource and thinking that we have to use it in one way. You don't have to. There's so many different ways of using a resource. For example, Keynote, PowerPoint. We can all go in and make a presentation with it and then present it to a class. But think outside the box with it. You can take that PowerPoint, create a slide, bring in images, export that out as an image itself, and use it as an image editor. You can take a presentation, tie it together with Screencastify, and add audio to it in a whole different way. And then on top of that, with Screencastify, you can ask questions within the video, within the presentation, or bring that into Nearpod. And so I want you to think outside the box with the different resources that we have in this district, because there's so many different ways to use it. Example, Screencastify. Screencastify is how to capture video and your voice. And we can use it with presentation tools. But what about your students using it to show what they know? So I want you to think outside the box with this. One thing, notice how we did this Nearpod with Google Slides. What if you had your students create a presentation? Maybe you're a history teacher doing something on the Civil War. One of your students or a couple of your students create a presentation. Then you take that presentation, add the engagement pieces of Nearpod, and then you present it to the class. Can you imagine how your students would feel with that? So I want you to think outside the box. Now I'm going to end this session. So when I click on End Session, are you sure you want to end this session? I'm going to put yes. So let's talk about creating a Nearpod using Google Slides and the tools that we went over today. So let's talk about, let me open up and I'm going to go in and I'm going to go into Slides. I'm just going to open up a blank Slides and I'm going to hit blank. So this is not an Nearpod, it's just Google Slides right now, right? So here I'm going to type this as Nearpod. I'm just going to give it a title. I want to make it kind of nice. So I click and it brings it in. Here I'm going to go ahead. I can, whatever this is, it could be science, mitosis, whatever it is. I'm just going to call it mitosis. And I'm going to put a subtitle. Just put my name on it. And if I'm going to add Nearpod stuff, I'm going to go ahead and click on add-ons. I'm going to open up Nearpod, open Nearpod. And here's the drag and drop capability. So when I click on it, it's going to open up a new window. Now, can you see this window?
Yes.
You can see it? Okay, I wasn't too sure if you were going to be able to. I was going to maybe have to share it. But notice what you see here. On the right side, you have Explore and Drag and Drop Library. They are already some that are pre-built that you can come in and do a search for. There's some now, actually quite a few, but there's a lot more coming very quickly. So if you want to bring in one that was already pre-created, this is how you would do it. You would find one, click on it, and bring it in. But let's make one by scratch. So I'm going to zoom this out and close it. Now, take a look. under Add Background. If I click on Add Background, notice how you have blank. I can upload an image. If I have an image that I have, maybe I did something in Google Draw, then I went ahead and I exported it out, and then I can bring it in. I can bring in a T shape. If I go across, I have different equals, and you have different types. You have columns that you can bring in. All right. And so let me just go with the standard 2-column. Let's make this easy. So I'm going to hit save. And right now, I didn't do much to this, right? I just did the 2-column and I hit save. Well, I can still edit more. So let me click on it again. And now I'm going to click and edit the slide, and let's take it to a whole different level. Now I have my columns here. Here's my instructions. Here's where I can zip it up to see everything. You see how that works? So if I want to enter a question here, it could be a question. It can be instructions of what I want them to do. Remember how I asked you to use the coins to drop them into the correct column? Well, I'm going to just put living and non-living, so that way you can see. I'm going to zip this up. And so here in the columns, you want to add text to this, right? So what you do is you click on the text bar, or if you want to draw it, you can draw it in. If I hit the text, I can bring it up and I type in living. And then I drag and drop it in. All right. So what you're drawing, what you're setting up is the backdrop of what you want them to do. If I go ahead and I click in here and I add the text, I go ahead and type in non-living. Make the box the way I want it. I'm just kind of that way. I have to shrink it. You don't really have to, but I do. What if I heard somebody say something about a number line. Well, you can draw the number line. And remember I was talking about using a slideshow like Google Slides to draw something and export it as an image. You could do that. You can use the Google Draw like Misha was talking about, export it out and then import it in. Or you can actually take the pencil, control the line to the way you want it, and you can draw your number line. Okay. Yeah, it's going to take a little while doing it this way, but you can. And there you go. Kind of get the idea. Or maybe use the text editor in a way, but you use both. I kind of like using Google Draw because you can make it perfect if you wanted to. Now, over here, notice the images or text labels. So for example, if I wanted to bring an image, I click on it and I can add an image here and I do a Google search. So here I'm going to type in a rock. Remember how that rock I had? So I click in rock. I click on the one I want. I hit save. And you see where it shows up here? That's not where it goes yet, not quite. And then notice the different sizes you can make it. Small, medium, or large. I'm going to keep it medium. If I don't like it and I want to dump it, I can hit the trash. Then I hit done. And so here I have a rock. But remember those coins that I did? Notice this unlimited copies. That's how I had it turned on, so that any image that was here, you drag one and it keeps making the copy. And so that's how I created this. And so how you use this, like I said, think outside the box. There's just so many different ways that you can make this happen. If I go back, I'm going to discard this. Yes, go back. And then notice the text here. So let's say I'm going to do nouns and verbs. So here I do a car, brings it in. There you have a car. I hit done, and it brings in that word car. So now that's something that I would drag down into it.
There's a question about would I open up Google Draw to put it into the Nearpod? And what you'd want to do is you want to download it as an image.
Yep.
And then you're going to upload that image into your Nearpod. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I want to make sure we
you're
answer
right.
that question.
And it makes me want to do more training on how to do Google Draw, then combine
Yeah.
this. But yeah, absolutely. And you know what's really a great editor is PowerPoint, is to go ahead and use Google Slides and bring in images. Do a search for a number line on Google
Mhm.
Slides and pop it in, right? And then export it out. Boom, there you go. But you could put in numbers. So let's say I want to put 25, hit OK, and then I hit done. If I want to do a -3, I hit OK. I have my negative numbers. See how you could do the number line on this? You could do a timeline. Maybe you have famous people's images and then they drag and drop into well, you got it. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot that you could do with this. Hit
You
done.
would do I'm thinking like emojis, like happy to sad, right? For the little guys, they can put them in there.
Absolutely. So if I
Mhm.
go back, if I do image, I do sad, search, sad
Yeah,
face,
sad emoji or sad
down
face. Yeah,
emoji.
you're gonna get a whole bunch of them.
Oh, boy, the poor baby.
Oh,
But you see, and then you hit save, and then you have and hit done. And so you can have different scenarios on how this would make you feel. Oh, there's just so much you could do with this. Or you can have up here maybe the periodic tables, different parts, and then you have the formulas, and then they have to. Oh my gosh, there's just so much you can do. So I'm going to hit save, and there it is, the drag and drop. Now the draw it. Let's go over the draw it real quick. And when I click on the draw it here, and I want you to notice again, like what it was with the drag and drop, it gives you some already pre-built. All right. Just for kicks, let's see if they have anything on mitosis. Actually, they do. And then you can bring it in. So don't hesitate. Do the searches. Now, let's say I want to put in the instructions. This is what I'm going to have them do. I can add an image, audio, or other media in here. So I click on that. Notice I can bring in an image. I can do an audio recorder where I can record my voice explaining to them what I want them to do. Maybe I bring in a PDF viewer where they look at a PDF and then you need to have them draw or do something with that PDF. A video. Maybe they watch a video first and then they have to draw something or annotate over an image. Maybe you have an audio that you created that you want them to listen to. Or they go to a web page, just like the sample that I gave you about the types of jobs and personalities and all that. Now, drag and drop files here. Oh my gosh. Now, you're going to have to be careful with that. Let me drag and drop one. You see how it turns into that circle? Now, this is the Colonia's PDF that I have. So I'm going to drag and drop that in. All right. This one would be a great one for the drag and drop that
Mhm.
I showed, because look at how you have the different states and then they drop them in. Wow. So that would, but on the draw it side, they could still use the text bar, right? And then click in here and then type in the text. So when I hit save, and then there it is. So on the draw it, I want you to think outside the box as to how to use this. And so now when they do it, they use the text tool. They put in the text tool into the box. They type in that certain one, and then they put in the answers. And so that's the draw it. Now, the PDF viewer. Remember that PDF where they went ahead and then they had a question on it? Well, that is also easy. Notice on the far right, here I have the PDF viewer, kind of like the one that you did. Let me show you how I made that. And then you have a drag and drop. So I grab that Washington, drop it in, it brings it in, and so the students can actually open it and read it and view it. And something like this you would use when a student is working on their own. This would be where maybe they watch a video as a whole group and then they go ahead and you set them off on their own, where this student guided, where they go on their own and then they can read the PDF and then they answer the quiz. Okay. Now, here they have the PDF viewer, but how do you get the questions in? So I'm going to open up another window and let me share that window with you. And it's the PDF actually. And so let me stop presenting that. And then let me open up the Nearpod. Hang on. Let me go into the Meet. And I'm going to share that with you real quick, that window. And so now you can see my PDF that I opened up, right? And so what I would do is I see the questions here and I take a look at that. I might reword them a little bit or I might use them the way they are. And then I go ahead and let me stop presenting. Let me go ahead and go in. And I'm going to go into the slides here. And now I'm going to add the quiz component. Did it show up? I don't think it showed. Let me go ahead and share it again. Yeah, it did. Okay. Are you seeing it okay? Okay. And so I'm going to go into the quiz. I'm going to click in the quiz. And then here is where you bring in the questions. So when was George Washington born? George Washington's home was called. I would put it in here. I would type in the answers here. And then whatever you check mark is going to be the correct answer. And then so that way when they take the quiz after reading the PDF, then they can go ahead and then it will grade that. Notice the add image, audio, or other media. When they're taking this quiz and for this question, I can go ahead and add an image to it. Maybe the question is on the water cycle. It could be, and then you have an image of the water cycle. So I'm going to hit save, and there it is. And so when they answer the question, now if I trash it, add a different one, I can put an audio recorder there where I go ahead and I can record my voice, and that way I can ask them what I want them to do. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and then that's how you do the quiz. You see, it really is easy. You just got to remember it's one step at a time. The VR one, remember that virtual reality of Hawaii that we brought in? Look how easy that one is. And I know a lot of us haven't had that chance to really play with it. And it's called Field Trip. You want to take your students to an opportunity to see something. So when I click on it, and then I can do a search. Here I did a search on Hawaii. And then I can click in, hit done. And then there it is. And then that's when I export this and save to Nearpod, that's when you get that VR. Now, let's go into how to do the fill in the blank one that we did. Remember the quote from Steve Jobs? So if I go into fill in the blanks here, it's going to come in and it's going to ask you to paste words, sentences, or something. And so what I do, I'm going to go ahead and go back to that PDF and see if I can grab something real quick. It's not letting me grab. Let me grab something else real quick, a quote or something. And all I'm doing is I'm doing a search, and I'm going to copy it real quick just because of time. And I'm going to go back into that, and I'm going to paste it in. And there it is. When I go next, it's going to ask you, okay, what words you want to pull out. Notice this side here. So all I have to do is grab the word, drag and drop it, and I click it, and it moves in. Sorry, you don't drag it, drop it. I was saying drag and drop. You just click on the word. And there you go. Once you have it, you hit done, and then now you have that fill in the blanks ready to go. Oh my gosh, it's 5:30 almost.
It's 5:30. Yeah.
Any questions? I know this was quick. Any questions? Let me go ahead and stop sharing. Oh, yeah, we're going down the rabbit hole. Yes, Misha, can we share the
Yeah.
recording out?
Yes,
Awesome.
yes. I need to get last week's out too. We were a little busy last week. I apologize. I was gone like every night last week.
Awesome. Well, I am so sorry, Misha. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining us on this Mini Monday. I hope you got something out of this. One tool, two tools, but take advantage of it. Jump in and don't hesitate. I can't thank you enough. And don't forget, Nearpod Video. You need to go to that session. That's going to be a good one. Take care, guys.